Welcome to the Root Cause Business of Medicine podcast, where we explore what's broken in healthcare and what we can do about it. I'm Dr. Erik Lundquist, and I've been practicing functional medicine for the past 15 to 20 years. I'm excited to co-host this podcast with my brother, Dr. Davin Lundquist,
who's just beginning his journey into functional medicine. We come from different points on the path, but we do share a common goal. We want to rethink how medicine is practiced and help others do the same.
The U.S. healthcare system is in crisis, rising costs, declining outcomes, and physician burnout at an all-time high. But we found a different way, another way, a better way.
On this podcast, we dive into real stories from medical professionals who've stepped away from the traditional model, kind of like me, and have found a new purpose in integrative, functional, and alternative approaches to care.
These are authentic conversations with practitioners and friends who redefine success, not just for themselves, but for their patients and communities.
Whether you're a clinician feeling stuck, a student seeking direction, or just curious about what is possible,
you're in the right place. This is the Root Cause Business of Medicine podcast. Welcome to a special episode of the Root Cause Business of Medicine podcast, where today we're kicking off season 2 and wrapping up season 1. And we thought we'd do this little interlude to help you kind of understand, if you didn't jump in at the beginning, kind of why we got started doing the podcast. And we thought in particular, since we're heading to UCI to talk to fellows this week on the business of medicine, that we would kind of jump in and kind of give you a look into where the journey is currently. What are your thoughts, Davin?
Yeah, I think because we were such novices at doing podcasts, we didn't really know what we were doing when we launched this, and we've been kind of figuring it out as we go. And I think that topic alone is interesting, right? And because I think in business, sometimes there are aspects to what we do that we have a lot more confidence in, or we have like an understanding of how it works, the workflow, the details, the operational logistics, right? And then there's other things that you do that sometimes you have to wing it a little bit, and that's okay as well. So, we thought that it might be good for us to, rather than be so perfect about having these beautifully edited podcasts from the get-go, where all channels are firing on all cylinders from the start. We got the audio off and running, and people have been able to benefit from that and listen to those. And now we'll have a little phase where we'll release the videos from all of these podcasts, which we fortunately did capture, and it will give people a chance to relive them if they want, or maybe we'll attract some new listeners who can see this podcast now in live and in color.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So one of the thoughts that we wanted to cover is just recapping a little bit of what it was going on from before. And maybe we can go ahead and talk about what were some of the favorite moments of the first 20 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as I'm sure you would agree, Erik, almost every episode was so enjoyable. And I felt like I was learning a ton pretty much from the start. And every episode brought a new perspective, a different point of view, a different personality, a different story. There were definitely themes that everyone sort of related to, it seemed like, but I think it's hard for me to pick, highlights. I mean, obviously, we had some of the sort of pioneers in functional medicine on, and so that was especially fun for me as kind of a newbie myself, getting to speak directly to some of these people that shaped an entire specialty.
Yeah, I think there were just some moments in some of the stories that were shared where I was like, wow, like this is incredible what you are accomplishing. I think back to, our first guest, Chris Magrita, sharing what he's doing, particularly with his local Congress, local politicians, working through those avenues to generate source funding for their feeding of their pediatric population, their underserved pediatric population, and how that combined with the fact that they had this egalitarian mindset with their pediatric uh, practice, where a lot of the pediatricians aren't necessarily functional or integrated medicine, but were open to allowing Chris and a couple others to practice that way. And in doing so, created an environment where they could do that. I thought that was very ingenious. And Chris didn't let some of those barriers slow him down in terms of moving forward and using his passion for helping families. And by helping families, he could help his patients, which were the kids. So that was, I felt like right off the bat, we were going. There was a few others. Is there something that one of the episodes that comes to your mind?
As sort of a maybe coming at it from a different perspective, right? Dr. Kumar and how he started out in like Pebble Beach, right? Like the epitome of sort of high-end concierge medicine, and then going sort of the other direction, right? And coming up with a model that kind of meets people at a much more reasonable economic price point in the direct primary care company that he built, right? And kind of set the stage for a whole movement really in that industry. And in a lot of ways created a whole energy around this idea of, the membership model. And so I think that has percolated throughout the sort of non-traditional or non-Western medicine, model.
Yeah, and I think that just reminds me of kind of a few concepts that we learned. One is that the passion and journey are more important than the route. And I know some people may say, well, what do you mean? The route and the journey may be the same. But what I mean is that the traditional route, right? So typically the expectation is that you go to this medical school, you do this residency, you go through this practice, you do medicine this way. And I think we have seen from each one of our guests that nobody had that particular route all the way through their journey. There may have been aspects of that, but at some point along that route in their journey, they hopped out. They moved over and went on a different path to allow them to really fulfill their passion, their motivation, their interest in trying to really help from that standpoint. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like, there were people like maybe, a Christian Oja or, some others who had a little bit more of a sense that they were going to head into this space, and, came along at a time when it was a little more mature, compared to like, hearing from Dr. Bland or Dr. Low Dog around, like it was completely forging new territory, right? And so yeah, I think it's been really interesting to see all the different, to your point, journeys, where people have ended up in similar places, but very different route to get there, and in some cases, blazing the trail.
Yeah. And then I think other things that stood out to me were just kind of some one-liners, that I have found myself kind of repeating. One was from Aaron Wenzel when he talked about stakeholders. That there's only two stakeholders involved in a membership program, in a cash paying program. It's you and the patient, versus multiple stakeholders. The phrase that was introduced to us from Jeff Glad, ready, fire, aim, instead of waiting until you can, get that target in precise view and you know exactly what you're shooting for and then firing. He's like, no, just go for it. Like, the direction you're heading. And as you're moving in that direction, you're already getting going, then refine it and aim into your target. And then the other one was just this, the other one that really kind of impacted me was that knee to knee. Like when, Dr. Low Dog talked about just really connecting spiritually with their patients by just getting into their personal, vulnerable space, but creating a safe environment to do that, and then really connecting with them. All of those things are really important from a business standpoint, because that connection is what allows people to really want to continue to come back and be associated with that practitioner. We provide a service. We're a service industry, right? Medicine is where people seek out some kind of service that's provided, and so I think those were some impactful moments in terms of how to approach the business of medicine that were really interesting and have been impactful to me in those first kind of 20 episodes.
Yeah, and I think another aspect that seemed to come out with almost every guest, but I think the one who really stands out for me is Dr. Jill Carnahan, in terms of just the love and that energy from a healing standpoint, right? Beyond just the science, but like just that human connection that she, really epitomizes in my mind. And I think everyone had a little bit of that, but like Dr. Bland is definitely a scientist, first, and you can feel that he has great passion and for humankind and wanting to do good, but it's definitely a little more grounded in sort of a scientific approach, but pretty much everybody had a really nice balance, right? Of saying, hey, it's not just about the science. It's not just about the medicine or the protocols or the data, but really, not only is the philosophy holistic or whole person, but also the delivery in a way is very complementary of both heart and mind together.
So I have the sun here really kind of helping me out in making sure that visually this is appealing. But what would you say were the most, if you to go back and say, okay, because I've listened to these podcasts, I have changed the way I am running my business of medicine. What would be some of the ways that you've changed your practice since you started hosting these podcasts with me?
Well, I think I've taken a little bit of everyone's advice, right? And we had a functional lawyer, we had his wife who started kind of from scratch and had this concept of like a foundational assessment. We've had different membership models. We've had people talk about finding your niche, right? Like not necessarily trying to help everybody with everything, but kind of finding your niche. And so for me, it's been a little bit of all that, right? Like tightening up the regulatory and the compliance and the logistics of my practice, feeling more comfortable charging what I think I'm worth, honing in on the model that made the most sense for me, refining it, not being afraid to kind of evolve and have that change as I learn. So yeah, it's been it's been like, for me, every podcast has moved me in a good direction, a little bit incrementally along in my own practice. And selfishly, I could say that the podcast was designed for me personally.
Well, if that's how you feel, then I think we are hitting the right target audience, because that's really who was designed for, was individuals who were kind of transitioning, wanted to move out of this space of more conventional, traditional type medicine offerings into a more alternative, holistic, even more spiritual place in terms of how they were helping their patients. I think for me, I would say, this idea of membership and some of the legalities to it. I mean, since we started the podcast, we have now implemented a membership. We've continued to do insurance-based medicine, but we've layered in the membership over the top, which has allowed us to continue to provide the quality of care that we have wanted, but be able to keep up with the increase in cost. Our overhead was continuing to rise without us being able to get higher reimbursements. It's been completely flatlined for the last 10 years from what we were getting from the insurance. So there started to be an increased gap between our overhead and our revenue. And anybody that runs a business knows that your profits and loss statements are critical for you keeping the doors open. So adding that membership program in, I remember listening with Michelle Leary and really understanding how they were doing this and layering this in with their naturopaths and their practitioners, and realizing that this was going to be a good approach with us. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I've taken away in terms of implementing some of the things that we've learned from our providers. And then I think just the mindset of really getting this idea of refining the branding, figuring out exactly what I'm passionate about and what kind of patient that I want to see, and really starting to market towards that type of patient versus just opening the doors and saying, anyone who wants to come through, let's do it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that there's, wisdom in that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we shift gears here and kind of wrap up season 1, as we'll call it, we'll look to the next set of guests to hopefully continue to refine and answer questions that our audience might have. We would welcome, for any of you that actually send in comments or thoughts, or have our contact information and want to just send us an email of what would be interesting to you for the next round. But again, just to make it clear, for the next couple months, we'll be releasing the videos from the first 20 episodes at a pace of about 2 per week. They will go onto my YouTube channel, just by way of housekeeping. And then obviously there'll be links to those from our normal podcast sites. And we'll work our way through releasing all those. Hopefully we'll have a nice schedule for season 2 in the works.
Yeah, we'd love to, hopefully we'll have this be our first video put up on the channel, and a place where you can put comments. We'd love to hear what kinds of things you've implemented from listening to the podcast, what kind of changes you've made because of what you heard on the podcast from one of our guests that really inspired you, helped you understand how you could change the way you're doing business in your medicine practice. And we'd love to hear those stories as well. So please feel free to comment on that. Davin and I will also, if you want to put in what topics you're interested, we are going to do in season 2, just some topic podcasts where he and I will just riff off of a particular topic, like membership or, insurance or ancillary services or ROI off of, finding tools that can help you in your practice and how you can actually get a good return on investment. So those are some things that we have been kind of thinking about, wanted to get this out there while we're kind of in this transition from season 1 to season 2. And we've got some great guests coming up for you in season 2, so you should be getting excited. And we look forward to having you continue to follow us.